much of it do we really hear? My message today is that music matters. It's a channel of communication. It's not just background noise or a soundtrack to your workout video. It's so much more than that. This piece, for example. It's a Mendelssohn song without words. And he called it a song without words so that you could create your own. If you were playing this to me, what would you be communicating? Some say love. Some say yearning. Some say it's a prayer. But whatever you think it is, one thing is for sure. In the time since I started playing that piece, your blood pressure has gone down at least 2 points. It's true. There are many physiological changes that happen in our body, in our mind, our emotions, from music that we listen to. So why not use that in a positive way to change some of the modern maladies in our society? Take domestic violence. I know of a very famous basketball player that's in treatment for that, and his therapist said, I'm going to insist that you do one thing. I want you to hand over your iPod to me, and I'm going to reprogram it with Mozart and Chopin, or Debussy, like this piece. And I'm going to insist that you listen to it very intentionally, especially on the way home from a basketball game or practice. 6 weeks later, he came back with his wife, hand in hand. He said, I can't believe the difference. I get home, I still had energy for the game, but I get home and I'm not feeling aggressive. I'm not trying to be dominant. I want to have a relationship, and I want to have a discussion, and I want to listen. Now, I wonder how much of our ability to listen has to do with how we listen to music and how we listen to each other. Another thing is nutrition, the world of nutrition. They tell us that food companies are deliberately putting in additives, sugar, salt, to make us crave more of that product so that we buy more. The same thing is happening in the music industry. Some, but not all, the producers are deliberately using harmonies, rhythms, beat speeds to make susceptible young people buy more downloads. And it's not the beats themselves. This is Gershwin, and it's great beat. And that's a great beat. But if I put that on a loop, and I play it 3 times the volume for 10 hours in an iPad, neurologists tell us that it creates a groove in the brain, and that's where the subconscious messages can come. So I go into schools and talk to kids, not to tell them don't listen to this or listen to that, because they have a wide range of music listening, and it's great. But invariably, someone will tell me, you know, I really like this one piece, and I know that the lyrics are terrible, but I don't listen to the lyrics, I just like the beat. And so I say, well, I hate to tell you this, but it's the music itself that puts the meaning of the words way down deep, much deeper than if there was no sound in them at all. So we have to be aware of the subliminal qualities and help our young people change the channel. And there's a group, ironically, in San Quentin prison, inmates, that have created a video positive rap video called Through the Walls. And what they're saying is don't listen to stuff we wrote. Don't play the songs we sang. Because we realize now that the message and the intent in what we did was not life-giving. And we may be in here, but we want to tell you to change the channel in your lives. So we're going into schools with our music message campaign and helping kids learn that they can create their own positive music messages for peace. Another school teacher is doing a separate project where she started playing Mozart as kids came into class. The kid said, "Turn it off, we hate that." She ignored it. A few weeks later, their test scores and academic success are way up, and disbehavior is way down. So that's great. How can we, as parents or teachers, apply that? Well, they now know, neurologists can tell us, that not only specific composers, but specific pieces affect the patterns in different regions of your brain for studying different subjects. So if you're trying to learn a foreign language, there is a specific piece by Vivaldi that helps open that part of your brain. And there are other pieces for math and other pieces for reading. So we can apply that. What about the other end of the age spectrum, the elderly that have dementia or Alzheimer's? Well, in the media, it's reported so often that all you have to do is play something they grew up with, and they'll wake up, right? Like this with a big band. It's great stuff no matter what your age or what your errand, but it wakes them up. So how did I get into all this? Have I always known these things? No. I've been a concert pianist since I was 2.5, 3, and I played in a rock group later, in a jazz band, in musicals, all kinds of music. I did it because I love the feeling of my fingers on the keys. I love to move, and I love the challenge of learning new pieces. But one day, I went to my piano lesson, and my teacher put this piece in front of me by Rachmaninoff, which I'd never heard. And I fell in love with it. It was communicating something to me, deep down inside. And I realized it wasn't communicating something just to me. It was to you. And my role was as a conduit. And I began to practice, never having done that before. I hated to practice. And all of a sudden, I couldn't stop practicing because I realized that if I worked out of love and a sense of service to the creator or composer of the music and to you, the audience, that it can make all the difference in your lives. And funny things started happening. Grown men started coming up to me after concerts and saying, "Your music healed something in me." Or people would come up crying, and I thought, there's a lot more to this than I understood. So then I started looking at other composers and other moods that were created and portrayed across all genres of music and all eras of music. So, for example, I found that there's joy, of course, the human element of joy, which is in all of us, and across the centuries, in classical music, it's portrayed very differently because of the different cultures and the different messages. So here's 3 centuries of joy. First we have Mozart, which he sings his joy usually. in the next century. And then in the following century, we have Brazil, another kind of dance, but just as much joy. It gives me joy to play that, even when I sometimes mess it up. So then I thought, well, I need to talk to some composers and find out if I'm inventing this whole conduit thing. So I devised a questionnaire and sent it to 30 composers around the world, very famous ones, but of all different genres of music. And I said, do you have any particular spiritual beliefs that impact the way you create or what your message is? And if so, do you feel that the spiritual beliefs of the performers or the audience impacts what they hear and the message they receive? Well, I was surprised that they said nobody had ever asked them these questions before, and they were thrilled. But they said that their answer to all of them was yes, yes, and yes. They said, absolutely, we create with intention and a message. And we hope that the performers serve that. And we hope that the audiences listen with intent so that we can help make changes in the world through the important medium of music. So then I started thinking, well, what about Beethoven? He was known as one of the more spiritually intentional composers. Most of us know this beautiful piece. Some of us may know that he wrote it, he said, to a friend as a hymn to the brotherhood of man. But even if we don't know that, it still goes in, right? It still affects us deeply. Why? Because we're wired to receive music and to respond to it. And that's why music matters. Let's take the food analogy again. We're wired to need food and water. If it happens that the food and water that we have access to is mostly polluted or toxic, we may be able to survive, but we'll die on the inside. And I believe it's the same for our music. If some of the music that we're surrounded by 24/7 is polluted or toxic and we're not aware of it, or the message it's conveying, or the intention it was created with, we could die inside. So I invite you all to listen for life and let the music change your hearts in any way that you wish. So remember those chords that I opened this talk with? Those were the opening bells of Rachmaninoff Prelude in C# minor. And he's sharing his joy at hearing all of the bells in Moscow from all of the monasteries ring at the same time every Sunday morning when he was a little child. And he later said that he hadn't realized it at the time, but that was a very strong spiritual memory for him and an experience that affected everything he ever wrote. So I'd like to conclude this with the closing bells of that same prelude as they die off and we leave the scene.